Hello. Guys, I'm audible.
Yes, Dinesh.
Okay, fine. So, okay, let me share my screen.
Yeah, it's visible.
Okay. So remember what we have covered in the previous session. Solomon.
VPC architecture.
Right. So VPC architecture we have done, correct. Okay. So did we cover the theoretical part and all? What is VPC? What is meant by subnet? Is that I have covered?
Yes, Dennis.
Okay, we have covered. Okay, fine. Right. Guys, can you tell me what is VPC? What is meant by VPC? What do you mean by VPC? VPC is the virtual private cloud. What is it? This quickly
Connecting
unmute.
VPN into client system on
Okay.
multiple system with multiple locations.
Okay. Okay. What else? Others? What is meant by VPC? What is the purpose of VPC? Let's make it interactive. What is VPC? No one will answer. Okay. No problem. Listen. So I'm telling like VPC is the logical isolation of your AWS cloud. Suppose if you want to create any private cloud inside your public cloud, when I say public cloud, it is an AWS. Then of course, we need to go for VPC, virtual private cloud. And the one more thing you have to remember with respect to VPC, it is the regional service. VPC, it is a regional service. Within a AWS account, within a region, whatever number of VPC that you want, you can able to create it. You can create a mini VPC over there. And that day I also covered what is meant by IP address, what is CIDR, that and all we have covered. Today, guys, again remember, inside the VPC, you guys can able to divide, guys. You can divide your VPC into multiple subnet, subnetwork. It is nothing but your subnet, right? Because when you create a VPC, we will have some CIDR, right? We will have some IP address range. Along with the network ID and host ID, we will get the IP address. So we have many IP address. Suppose if I take 10.0.0.0/32, around 65,536 IP address, you will get it. But in that, you need to allocate few IP address for one subnet and another subnet, because the resources that you are creating, everything is not under the public, right? You may consider like some resources that I need to launch inside the public server. When it's a public server, inside the public subnet, and some resources that I need to launch inside the private subnet. Those resources that you are launching inside the public subnet, which is called public server, and the resources that you are launching inside the private subnet, which is nothing but private servers or private services. So it means that a public server, it is not getting the internet, or it is getting the internet through public, right? The public internet, you will get it. There is a direct interaction on your internet. But if you go with the private subnet, whatever the services or resources that you are using, utilize here. So here we don't have a direct, interaction with the internet. Maybe indirect interaction with your internet. Maybe I can call on this. Right. So remember, there are two subnet. You guys can create it. We can create it. One is okay. So there are two subnet. One is a public subnet, and another one is Another one is a private subnet. So there are two subnet you can create it. One is public subnet and another one is private subnet. So when I say public subnet, where you can launch the public resources, right? The public resources where we have direct, maybe internet or direct network being connected. But if we go with the private subnet, where you can launch your private resources, here it is not a direct, internet, maybe I can say, and there is an indirect communication. Indirect communication happen on the private subnet. So then only you will go for the private subnet. So this is, you should remember, guys. Right, what else? And your subnet will be launched in an availability zone. In an availability zone, where you have to launch your subnet. Subnet should be launched in an availability zone. You are launching your VPC inside the region. VPC is a regional service. In the same way, subnet you have to launch inside the availability zone. Every VPC, for a VPC, you guys can able to create a multiple subnets. You can create the multiple subnet, but where it should be launched? It should be launched inside the availability zone. So if you ask me what VPC has, VPC has the range of IP addresses, right? Yes or no? We have a range of IP addresses. You can find it for a VPC, right? So maybe I can call it as CIDR, right? Classless inter-domain routing. CIDR is nothing but a block of IP address. Where I can say block of IP address, a range of IP address. But if you go with the subnet, each subnet you have to provide some IP address, right? Suppose if you have a 20 IP addresses for your VPC, suppose you have a 2 subnet for that particular VPC, maybe you can distribute 10 IP address for one subnet, another 10 for another subnet, like that. So subnet also will get the partial number of subnets, right? Partial number of subnets or partial number of IP addresses from the VPC. You have to remember. So subnet is the providing a private or isolation of your resources. Whenever, if you take some application, consider like I have an application call. Say database. We have an application called database. And we have one more application called EC2. One is the database, one is EC2. Can you tell me which one you will launch in public subnet and which one we will launch in private subnet? What do you think?
Database private, EC2 public.
Exactly. Because database, there is no, direct interaction that you are going to do. Customer never ever, they will do the direct interaction with your database. Always they will have the direct interaction with your server only. So then it should be public. Again, guys, this is not at all applicable for every situation. I cannot tell, right? In all situations, EC2 should be public and data should be private. Not like that. I cannot tell like this one. Because I will give you one more example. The next topic that I'm going to cover, which is database. After that, I will cover one more topic, which is called load balancer. Elastic load balancer. In AWS itself, we have one service called Elastic load balancer. So if you ask me what is the purpose of Elastic load balancer, it is just to balance the load. It is just to balance the load. Suppose if you are getting a request, right, multiple requests, suppose thousands of requests you are getting. Now, if I want to split that request into the multiple server, then we need this particular service from AWS. In order to split your load, if you are getting the more traffic, I need to split your traffic. Then of course, in AWS, we have one of the service which is called Elastic load balancer. Why I'm saying this one? Later, when I cover load balancer, Obviously, we will not launch your instance directly. We will not call your instance with help of a public IP address. What basically we will do? We will call the load balancer. The load balancer will allocate some server. So the user, they shouldn't directly launch the EC2. They will not deploy any application on EC2. What basically EC2 user will do? User will call the load balancer IP address. Call the load balancer IP address. This load balancer will allocate some server. Maybe if load balancer is connected with 10 server, then what architecture will look like? Load balancer, you have to make it as a public, and EC2 server, you have to make it as a private. It has changed right now. Earlier I said EC2 is public, but now I'm saying EC2 is private. Only the load balancer URL is public. I'm saying it is changing, right? Yes, we cannot guarantee, like, based on our requirement. If you want to have the direct interaction with your resources, then you can host it in public subnet. If you don't want it should have the direct interaction with the internet, then you can host it in private subnet. Are you clear so far? Yes, sir. Guys, can you confirm?
Yes, sir.
Okay. As I said, subnet will be launched inside the availability zone. So availability zone can have one or more subnet, guys. Remember, availability zone can have one or more subnet. It is your need. You guys can select. Did you remember I said? So inside your VPC, we can create until 200, right? I said for a region, 200 subnets we can able to create. In the same way, I'm saying for each and every availability zone, if I want to create one or more subnet, yes, we can able to create it. That is possible. In default, in every availability zone inside your AWS cloud, you will get one subnet. But if you want to add number of subnet, yeah, you can able to add it. So this is also you have to remember. So subnet that you are creating inside the availability zone, for availability zone, we can able to create one or more subnets. And remember, it is the one of the best practice. Always you have to keep it in your mind whenever if you go with a subnet. So the best practice is you should reserve more number of or more IP addresses to be or to private subnet. This is the best practice. You should remember. So whenever if you go with the subnet where you are creating an IP address, right? You should reserve more IP address, right? In private subnet. Why? Because security. For security reason only. Because why we are going for your VPC? Or just to create a private cloud, right? Just to create the private cloud. So when I say private cloud, of course it's a security, right? Talks about security. Then where you should reserve your IP addresses? Obviously, right? You have to make it as a private IP address. If you want to make an IP address private, then where you need to launch? Of course, you have to launch in a private subnet. Then only the IP address will be in a private part. So thereby, we can able to secure our IP addresses. So there are 3 points, remember. Inside the availability zone, you have to create the subnet. For a subnet, we can able to create one or more for a availability zone, we can create one or more subnets. And you should reserve more IP addresses to your private subnet for security reason. I have a question, guys. Earlier, I was asking you one question. In the Saturday session, I asked one question. What is that like? Can VPC span across availability zone? Can you tell me whether yes or no? Can VPC span across availability zone? Yes or no? Can you tell me, can VPC span across availability zone? Yes or no? Yes, I'm expecting your answer. Yes or no?
Not sure.
Yes. Yes, maybe.
Yes. See, what I'm asking, please be on mute. Yeah, what is my question like? This VPC, can I use in region level, right? Then obviously we can span it, right? We can distribute it, right? Across the multiple zone. Yes, of course. How? Through the subnet only. How we are distributing our VPC into the multiple availability zone? With help of subnet. Am I correct or not? Yes or no?
Yes, maybe.
Yes. Suppose if I ask, right, can subnet span across availability zone? What is your answer? What is your answer?
Yes.
Yes. Can we able to use one subnet inside one availability zone into another availability zone?
Yes, yes.
Sure. Can I able to use one subnet inside one availability zone into the another availability zone?
No, sir.
Answer is no. Remember, we cannot distribute, we cannot attach a subnet inside the availability zone into the another availability zone. We can able to distribute our VPC into multiple availability zone by using subnet. But single subnet that you have created inside the availability zone, that is only for that particular availability zone. It is not for another availability zone. This is the inter-equation. Remember.
Okay, we have to create another subnet for
Yes.
another availability.
Exactly. We have to create a separate subnet in another availability
Okay.
zone. We cannot use the same subnet in another availability zone. Right. And the one more point you have to remember, the best practice you have to remember, IP addresses, not best practice, it's a rule actually. The IP addresses, like maybe a CIDR block, what I mean like CIDR block of your public and the private shouldn't overlap with each other. Shouldn't overlap with each other. What is the meaning of this particular line? What is the meaning of this line?
IP address should be different.
Yes. For public and private, the IP addresses are different. Public and private, the IP address should be different. Suppose I have created 10 EC2 machine, and if you are creating 5 public IP address and 5 private IP address, then the IP address which is created for a public, right, that you shouldn't overlap with this one. Suppose if we have one IP address 0.1, that IP address only one IP address, because IP address it is unique one. But here we are using the public and private. You shouldn't use public IP address into the private. Thereby there will be a lot of confusion. So this is also you have to remember. The IP addresses of public and private shouldn't overlap with each other. So fine. Now let me teach you practically how to create a VPC in your AWS management console. Sorry guys, listen. Suppose I'm creating a VPC. Click on this VPC. Now, can you see a create VPC here? Can you see create VPC here?
Yes, Dinesh.
Yes. So after that, here you can see the two options, right? One is VPC only and VPC and more. VPC only and VPC and more. So either of them you can select. But as of now, let me go with the VPC only. Click on VPC only. I will tell you later. What is the difference between this VPC only and VPC and more? And here you can give the name. So any name you can give it. Say my hyphen VPC, same name I'm going to use. My VPC hyphen 01. If you want to any name, you can give it. It's a kind of a tag name, simple. And IP version, CIDR manual input. IP version, CIDR manual input. And IPAM allocated IP version 4 CIDR block, right? So let me go with this one. Later I will tell you what is this one. So I will go with this one. So manual input I'm going to give. Here, you guys can select a CIDR. And if you ask me what is the default CIDR, you can select it. So you can start from 10.0.0.0/28 to 10.0.0.0/ I think, which is 16, I think so. 16, correct? Yeah, 16. So, right? So let me give 10.0.0.0/ which is 24 I'm going to give. When I say 24, how many IP address I will get? I will get around 65,536 IP address I will get. 10.0.0.0/24 I will get. I think, I hope you remember that one. Anyway, I will open the IP address guide.com. And here I can select this CIDR to IP version 4 and which is 10.0.0.0 which is /24. When you click on convert, I can see around, okay, only 256. I'm sorry. If I select 16 only, I think 65,536. I made the mistake, sorry. Did you remember that formula? Always remember that formula. 2 power base 32 minus whatever the CIDR host ID. Whatever the CIDR, the prefix that you have to give, which is also called as net mask. Correct. Now, after giving this CIDR, maybe let me give 16 here. Then come below. And I need CIDR IP version 6 is available, right? As of now, just mark it as no. Mark it as no. Because I'm going to only focus on IP version 4, not IP version 6, which is IP version 4 is 32-bit, IP version 6 is 128-bit. Fine. Now let me come to this part. Tenancy. What is tenancy? Tenancy is nothing but, did you remember, guys, pricing option of EC2? There are 4 pricing options I have covered. One is on demand, reserved, spot, and dedicated host. In the same way, in tenancy, we have 2 options. One is called default and dedicated. If you need a dedicated server, if you need a complete one, the private server, then you have to select the dedicated. Or otherwise, if you want to go for default, a normal one you can go for. But if you select the dedicated server, you have to pay a lot of money. Again, it will give you the more performance. It will give you more security because it's a dedicated server. It is a separate server, isolated server, isolated physical server you will get it. Again, choice is yours. So let me go with the default because I'm not going to pay anything. But in real time, maybe most of the time, when you go with some finance application and all, the people, they will go for dedicated also. Okay, default. And if you want any tag name, you can give it. Otherwise, I can click on create VPC. That's it. You can see the VPC, right? So VPC, this is an VPC ID and state is available. And this one I will tell you. Apart from this, which one? Yeah, we have selected the CIDR called 10.0.0/36. 60. We have selected. Fine. Now, if you click on this CIDR, this is CIDR already we have created. Only the VPC that we have created, guys. We haven't created any subnet. Only VPC we have created. Suppose if you want to create another VPC also, you can create it. In a region, you can create many VPC. Say, suppose if I want to create another VPC, let me write my VPC -02 and IP version manual input I'm going to give 10.0.0.0 say /28 I'm selecting or /24 I'm selecting, whatever it might be. I can select it. and I will not go with the IP version 6 and default I'm selecting. That's it. Click on create VPC. Now one more VPC got created. So if you click on this your VPC, I can create two VPC, right? This is the default VPC. In every region, you can see the default VPC. In every region, you can see the default VPC. But here I have created a VPC inside. Customize the VPC that I have created. Two VPC I have created. Now, after creating the VPC, what is the next step? You have to create the subnet. Create the subnet also. How can I create the subnet? Click on create subnet. And here you have to give the VPC that I want to link. Say I am linking this one. I'm linking this one. My VPC -01. Now, and this is associator CIDR. And I will give a subnet name also. Subnet -01. Right? And then come below. And you have to select the availability zone. I have selected, this is Canada, I think so. Canada region I have selected. Inside, we have a many availability zone. Maybe I will select 1A. Inside this 1A only, I'm going to create this subnet, right? That's it. Here you have to give the CIDR block for your subnet, not for VPC. You already given a CIDR block for your VPC, which is 10.0.0.0/16. Now you have to give a CIDR block for your subnet, because in a VPC we can create many subnets. So to understand this one, let me go to another free website, which is Site 24x7, where we have a tool called Subnet Calculator. Subnet Calculator. Open that. So here you can give it. Say suppose I'm selecting 16. I will divide this VPC into two subnets. Can I divide this VPC into two subnets? Yes, I can divide. As much that you want, you can divide it. Correct? So now let me copy this. And here, go here and paste it here. And what is the range I have to give? The subnet calculator says, I think 17, maybe you can mark it as 18/18. So if you want to know how many IP addresses you will get it here, just paste it this one, calculate. Totally, I will get 16,384 IP addresses you will get. Right? 16,384. 1 minute. So 16,384. $16,384 into 2, which is around 32,768. But what is the subnet number? 1 minute. Which is lesser than 16. Lesser than 16. How many? 65,000. And which number then we have to keep? Which is 20. Let's see. What is the number that we are getting? The number that we are getting 4,096. So what about 7 people? I'm getting around 32,768. So yes, I think 17 we have to keep. I made the mistake. So let me mark it as 17. Fine. So that's it. You guys can create the subnet. And here one subnet got created. In which availability zone we have created? We have created in CA Central -1A. -1A we have created one subnet. And can I create another subnet also? Yeah, I can create the subnet. So this is my VPC -01. And here we need to give the range also. Copy this. And here you can select the availability zone. If you want 1A, you can go with, or 1B, whatever the subnet or availability zone, Where you need to create it, no issues. So let me go with another availability zone this time and paste this one, which is /17 I can do. That's it. Click on create subnet. So how many subnet we have created? Totally, we have created 2 subnets. I didn't give any name. I made the mistake. Here I can give the name. This one, my-subnet-02. Now the question is, we have created 2 subnet, right? Whether these 2 subnet are public subnet or private subnet. That's the question. Whether it's a public subnet or private subnet. So this is a private subnet, guys. Remember, whenever in VPC, whenever you create any subnet, right, that is a private subnet. That's a private subnet. In default, it's a private subnet. It is not a public subnet. Unless or until you make a changes on the public subnet, it's a private subnet. Right? So now the question is how to mark that as a public subnet. So it's straightforward. So what you need to do, click on this particular subnet. Suppose if I want to make, this is my private subnet and I'm going to make this is a public subnet. How can I do that one? Simple, click on this, and in the actions, you have one option called edit subnet settings. Edit subnet settings. So in that, you have to enable your auto assign public IP version 4 address. Can you see this option, right? So enable the auto assign IP settings to automatically request public IP version 4. Right? So if you want to make a public IP version 4, you have to enable this one. Unless or until if you are not enabling this one, it is a private subnet. It will be considered as a private subnet. But what I need to make this is a public subnet. So when you click on the checkbox, after that click on save. Now it is my, maybe I can rename for our understanding, it is my private and this is my public. This is for private and this is public. So first one is public subnet and another one is private subnet. So in order to make this one, go to the actions, click on edit subnet settings. Here you have to enable this one. Remember, don't forget. And there are 2 subnet I have created. One is public subnet and another is private subnet. Any questions so far? Can you confirm?
No, Dinesh.
Okay. So far what I have done, I have created one VPC. Better I will delete this VPC because anyway we are not going to use this one. So I will delete this VPC and write delete this VPC. Only one VPC we have. This is my VPC and I have created 2 subnet. It is already attached with my VPC also. One is public subnet and another one is private subnet. Done. So the public subnet that I have launched inside a zone called 1A and another zone 1B. Fine. Leave it. Now listen carefully. Now this is 1B, right? But I will tell you now, suppose let me take one EC2 instance. I will take one EC2 instance and I will click on launch instance and say suppose this is my EC2 without or EC2 default VPC, like that I can give default VPC, and this is my AMI and T2 micro. I can go with without a key pair and network settings. Here there is a default VPC. It is not our VPC. It is a default VPC. So in order to confirm this one, let me create a new tab and I will show you. Right? I will show this. And I will go with the VPC. Click on this. And your VPC and where I can paste it. See, this is my default VPC. It is not my VPC. It is a default VPC. So if you want to see this one, here you can see it. See, here the default VPC, yes. Default VPC, yes. Fine. Now, what I will do now, using the default VPC, I'm going to launch the instance. I'm going to launch the instance and click on view all instances. It is my default EC2 instance, which is created by default VPC. Let's wait for some time. Okay, when you click on this, I can see the right public IP address and private IP address. Both IP address you can able to see. And networking, it got selected with the default settings. It's a VPC, which is the default VPC. And it has the detail like a public IP address and private IP address. Now what I will do, I will create one more instance, guys. I will launch one more instance. This time, I will launch the VPC. So suppose I have a EC2 -, I will create my VPC. I will launch with my VPC, whatever the IPC that I have created. And Linux, Tito Micro, and I will go with proceed without a keeper. And go with the network settings. Now you can click on network settings. It is a default VPC. Now click on this. Here we have my VPC. Is that right? I have a VPC. Click on this. I have a VPC. You have to click on this. Then once you're done, here we have a subnets. We have a public subnet and we have a private subnet. So inside the VPC, we can create two subnet, right? Public subnet or private subnet, because we have created two subnet. Either of them is possible. So let me go with the private subnet. Go with the private subnet. And when I select the private subnet, here we have auto assign public IP address. Even though, we have selected the private subnet, right? It is giving like this. So let me disable this. Then after that, I will directly go ahead and click on launch instance. Now come below and click on view all instances. This is the VPC that I have created. This time it is not going with the default VPC. This is my VPC, which is called a private subnet I have selected. Now, let's see. Once it is up and running, right? So now click on this. Can you see only the private IP address for this one? You don't see any public IP address, right? So because whenever if you launch any instances on the private subnet, that will get only a private IP address. It is not getting any public IP address. Are you getting my point?
Yes, Dinesh.
Yes or no? Everyone?
Yes, yes.
So let's launch one more instance also. Suppose I'm giving EC2, another VPC, or another subnet. So I will proceed without a keeper and click on network settings. Here I am selecting my VPC and I will select the public subnet this time. Public subnet. And then click on launch instance. And come below, click on view all instances. So let's wait for some time.
Now we will get a public IP address.
Yes, we'll see. Okay, so click on this. Here you are not getting any public IP address. Can you tell me why? Why? Why we are not getting the public IP address here?
Do
Why
we
see?
have to change any security?
In the networking side, in networking. So here, one minute. I'm getting lot of disturbances. So let me terminate this and I will create a new instance. So this is EC2, another or public subnet, and then Linux machine T2 micro, and I will proceed without a key pair. And after clicking on this, click on edit, and you can select the VPC which is you have created, and the subnet it's public subnet, and here I have given auto assign public IP address visible. So let me enable this IP address. After enabling, and let me try to create launch instance. So now click on view all instances, and then here we have a public subnet. So now click on this. Let's see once it is up and running. Let's check. Okay. So public subnet. So you can see the public IP address and private IP address. Everyone clear?
Yes, Dinesh.
So this is how you can create your VPC. After that, you have to divide the VPC into multiple subnet. But this time, I'm going to tell you one more simpler way. No need to create a VPC. For that, you have to follow certain steps, and then you have to go for your your subnet, and then you have to follow certain steps. In a single screen, I want to create everything. So is that possible? If you ask me, yes, it is possible. In a single screen, we can create it. For that reason only, AWS people, they have enabled this particular option, which is called VPC and more. You guys can see this one, VPC and more. It is very straightforward. No need to go for this VPC only, go for VPC and more. And give any name. Guys, when you give any name, right, you can check here also what is happening. It is a wizard. It is a wizard. See, suppose I'm giving, it is my VPC, hyphen wizard, using wizard. Can you see here? It is getting changed, right? This is my VPC. And
Yes,
inside VPC, you can create many subnets. So it is giving some demo. Fine. Now, after that, I can select the CIDR also. Maybe we'll go with same CIDR, 10.0.0.0/16. Here, clearly you can see 65,536 IP address you will get it. And IP version 6, I can go with no, and tenancy, let me make it as default or dedicated, whatever it might be. And in this particular screen itself, we can select the number of availability zone also. I think in central, how many availability zones are available? In central, one minute. So to understand this one, click on your VPC and click on subnet. And I have around 5 availability zones. These 2 availability zones I have created, right? Sorry, 3 availability zones are available. In central, we have 3 availability zones. So now, let me select 2 or 1, whatever it might be. So I can select 1 availability zone. And I'm going to create 2 subnet. One is public subnet and 1 private subnet. Or if you want to create a 0 public subnet and 1 private subnet is possible. Or 0 public subnet, 2 private subnets also possible. So whatever you want, you can create it. Let me create 1 public subnet and 1 private subnet. And not gateway and all, no need to worry. That's it. That's it. Click on create VPC. So automatically it will create your VPC, and it will create the subnet, and it will create the routing table, and it will create the everything. In S3 endpoint, everything it will be created in a single screen. So it's more powerful. So instead of, without wizard, you can go for wizard also. So here also you can create the single screen, you can create the VPC along with multiple subnets also. It is either of them your wish, guys. You guys can go for any one option. Are you clear so far? How to create
Yes.
the VPC, how to create the subnet, public subnet and private subnet?
Yes, Dinesh.
Okay. Others? Aman, Sam, Satyamurthy, Yuva?
Yes, Dinesh.
Okay. Yes, I will give you one, okay. I want you guys should explore one thing, guys. So I'm going to give one simple task. Please try to solve this one. The same, actually, first what you can do, you have to create a VPC. How to create a VPC using VPC wizard. Go with VPC wizard. Using that, create a VPC. And then try to, you have to make a note of all the components, that VPC wizard is creating. Just to note all the component of the VPC wizard. It is creating VPC, it is creating subnet, and it is also creating the routing table and all. Just to look on that particular screen. And try to take the VPC ID. Take the VPC ID and maybe check the route table associated with that. Check the route table. Check the route table associated with the VPC. The same way, maybe you can also check the subnet, guys. Take the VPC ID, you can check the subnet created for that VPC. Let me show what you guys can do. Like once you have created a VPC, just to take the VPC ID. This is a VPC ID, copy this, and you will go with the subnet, and here you can paste it and press enter. When you press enter, we have created the two subnet, right? One public subnet and one other is private subnet. Just to look into this one. And also we have a routing table, right? Here also you can paste that particular VPC and press enter. Can you see one route table got created? This is called a main route table. Tomorrow I will talk about route table, but as of now, you just see like this is the route table. One VPC ID got one route table. It means that for a single VPC, you got one route table. Even though you have created a two subnet, you are seeing only one route table. So just to look into this particular column, route table ID, and it's the main route table, and we have one VPC and the owner ID like that. So your assignment is today, create one VPC using the VPC wizard. And once you have created a VPC, what are the different components it is creating? Just look into that one and use the VPC ID to check a subnet and a route table. Are you clear so far?
Yes, Dinesh.
Dinesh, please post it in the chat window,
Sure.
that exercise.
Sure. Yeah, I posted.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Dinesh.
Okay. Guys, let me share some URL. If you have time today, please try to read this documentation. How Amazon VPC works. So when you have a time, just to read it, guys. Whether you are understanding or not, that's completely fine. Just read this one. So what is VPC? They have given what is subnet basics and how the internet traffic privacy in Amazon VPC, IP addressing, everything they have given in a simpler manner also. So just to read it, whether you are understanding or not, that's a different. Anyway, I'm going to cover in the session itself. But if you read it, you will get more clarity on this. And along with that, I will give you, this is also I will share you in the chat box. You just, if you have a time, you just read it. And one more is how to decide the CIDR range for a VPC. So this is also okay here. So we have one article actually here, which is RFC. Let me show this. RFC. Yes, this one. RFC 1918. So using this article only, they are giving this cider range. So better you will read these articles also. Just to read it. How this only IP version 4. No need to worry about the IP version 6. At least IP version 4, you just read it. Okay. Fine.
Okay, Dinesh.
One more. Wait. So this is also the URL I'm giving. You just do the answer also, guys. Try to create a VPC, try to create a subnet step by step. They have given how to create the VPC. So when you click on create a VPC, here they have given. So go to the VPC dashboard, create a VPC and give VPC and more and give some name and the CIDR block and select one availability zone. Everything they have given step by step. Just you can create one VPC and how to do the, this is a in default, you are getting the private subnet. If you want to make the public subnet, again, they have given some clear picture and how to understand the cider range, everything. And click on the next and how to add some subnet. So this is how, you can create the subnet also. So this and all, you will give, it will give you more clarity. So when you do the answer, click on this next. And routing table, no need to practice. Tomorrow anyway, I'm going to cover routing table. Only VPC and subnet part, you guys complete today. So the URL also I have shared. So do the answer also. Once you have done, take me the photo and send it to me in the WhatsApp group. So that way I will understand once you have done or not. Fine. Any question? Any question? Right.
No, Dinesh.
Okay then. Thank you guys. We'll see you tomorrow. Please practice. Bye.